All right, so good morning. This is going to be our last class before the final test. We are not going to be meeting up next Tuesday. I will post a review video for you though, so you can watch that, and it's going to help you prepare for the final test. The final test is going to be from lecture 6 to 10, and there might be some lab questions related to the microscopy as well. Okay. So let's. My plan is to finish lecture 10 today, and that would be it. So lecture 10, as you know, is called body tissues, and yeah, no class on Tuesday, Kiana. Okay, just it's asynchronous class, so like you just watch the review yourself. Okay, so we learn all the body terms and how we refer to their locations and things like that. Now we're just gonna spend the rest of the class talking about the main type of tissues that are found in the body. Okay, so um, one of the most abundant type of body tissue is what we call the epithelial tissue. Okay, epithelial tissue. So these epithelial tissues tend to form the surface of certain organs. They line the inside of some hollow structures in some cases. And depending on where you find these epithelial tissue, the characteristics is going to be a little bit different. Okay, some are quite thin, as you can see, and as you can see in this picture. Some are, kind of cube shape, and some are more like rectangular shape. So it depends on where you find them. The function is going to be closely related to how they look, as well as how many layers you are going to find in those places. So let's take a look here at some general characteristics associated with epithelial tissue. We can just say epithelium as well. You don't have to always say tissue. We say epithelial tissue or epithelium. Okay. So when it comes to epithelium, there tends to be one side that's facing the external environment, um, or if it is in the case of a hollow organ, then it will be facing the inside of that structure. So that side is going to be called the apical side. Apical side. So if you think about like a stomach, right, you would have cells that are facing the inside, and then you would have cells that are facing like the outside. So on those surfaces, right, those would be the apical side. I guess the best way of thinking about it is like think of a peanut butter sandwich. Okay, you got your bread and the bread, and then you put a bunch of uh, peanut butter in the middle, I suppose. So when you're holding the peanut butter sandwich, right, the side that you're touching, the bread, that's the apical side. Okay, apical side. You have an apical side on both sides, right, of the sandwich. Similarly, in a organ, especially if it's like a hollow organ, you would have an apical side on the inside as well as on the outside. Okay. The other surface that attaches the epithelium to the non-cellular layer, we call that the basement membrane. Okay, so back to the peanut butter sandwich, the peanut butter is going to be the basement membrane. Okay, it glues everything together, if you would. Right, so usually these are some kind of connective tissue that connects things together. All right, so we got the apical side and we got the basement membrane. So here, the epithelial tissue are classified according to the shape that they have, as well as the number of layers. If we use the term simple, if there is only a single layer, and if we have multiple layers, then we say stratified. Okay. Simple is one layer, stratified is two or more layers. Okay, multiple layers. In some places, you only want one layer. In other places, you need to have more layers. Again, it relates to the function of the tissue. Now, there are three main shapes that I want you to be familiar with. We have the flat one, which is called squamous cells, okay? Squamous epithelium. And these are like sunny side up eggs. You got the egg, and then you got the egg yolk kind of in the middle. Okay, so except the yolk would be like the nucleus in this case, but they're really flat. Okay, it's not really propped up. Okay, so squamous epithelium, flattened cells. We have the cuboidal, that's how you pronounce it, cuboidal, which is cube-shaped cells. Okay, they literally look like a dice, and then the nucleus would be in the middle. And then lastly, we have the columnar, which is more like a rectangular prism, like this. Yeah, so those are the three generic shapes. Sometimes they have some modifications on them. Some of them might have cilia, some of them might have extra specialized foldings, but typically it's just either they're flat, squamous, cuboidal, or like elongated. Call them columna. So I'm just going to show you each type of cells and where you're going to find them. I mean, you don't really have to memorize them. You're gonna, I mean, the best way to do this is just to fill this out in the chart in the study guide, and then just have it as a reference for you, right? During the test. A lot of these things are gonna come back next semester when we learn them in the different organ system. This is just meant to be like an overview for you. So like just remember key like big concepts, like the main theme, rather than memorizing all the examples that are on the slide. Okay, so simple squamous epithelium. Simple means one layer. Squamous is flat cell. So basically, this is one layer of flattened cells. Okay, so when do you want to have a single layer of cells that are really thin? Well, this would be ideal if you're trying to let things pass through, right? So anytime you have a location in the body that requires diffusion or osmosis or like filtering fluids, then it's best to have these kind of cells. They're not very good for protection, okay? They're just there to let things cross out, let things pass through them. Right? So you would find them in the air sacs of the lungs, where gas exchange occurs, right? Location of gas exchange, right? You will find them in blood vessels, because the blood needs to exchange nutrients with the surrounding, right? It has to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide, so you want them to be able to pass through quite easily. Okay, so here is a picture of the squamous cells, and this is the free surface, or as we say, it's called the apical side. And then you have the other side that's attached to the basement membrane. Okay. Another way to think about this is like crocheting, right? Like you can have like a canvas and then you crochet on top of it, right? So the canvas that holds all the yarn together, right? That's like the basement membrane. Okay, so simple squamous is best for, again, letting things pass through. Right? You'll find them in air, in the air sacs of the lungs, blood vessels, right? For nutrients exchange. Okay, that's that. Next, we have stratified. Okay, stratified squamous epithelium. Stratify means multiple layers. Okay, you want to have several layers of these flattened cells, one stack on top of the other. And it's particularly useful in situations where you want to have protection against friction, perhaps. You want to have protection against exposure to extreme temperature, for example. And it comes in two forms, okay? If it's found inside the body, they are non-keratinized, okay? The keratin is it's like a substance that kind of creates like a barrier that prevents moisture loss. And you know, you would want to have these keratinized epithelium when it's like on the outside, like in your skin, for example, okay? So obviously the skin is multiple layers of squamous epithelium because then, you know, we touch things here and there, especially at the bottom of the feet where you are like rubbing it all day as you're walking, right? And you will know, right? Sometimes you wear a new shoes and they haven't been broken in yet, and then, you know, it could cause excess rubbing at certain parts of the feet, and you end up losing some skin, and then it hurts, right? And that's what these stratified squamous is for. Okay, it protects you from friction, protects you from wear and tear, and also the keratin help to prevent drying up of your cells, right? It prevents desiccation. It says right here, right? So that's for the outside. Now on the inside, we also have various parts that are subjected to various extreme environment. Take the oral cavity, the inside the mouth, right? And the esophagus, that's the tube that connects your throat to your stomach. We put all sorts of stuff in our mouth, right? Acidic things, hot things, like temperature hot, as well as like spicy hot. All these things could be very damaging if you don't protect the oral cavity with multiple layers of these squamous. Okay, so again, looking at the location. These are again places that requires protection from repeated exposure. Okay, and there's a lot of physical abrasion as well as a mechanical stress. All right, so if you want things to pass through easily, you only want one layers, such as like the lungs, the blood vessels. If you want protection against, you know, rubbing and friction and all that stuff, then you need to have multiple layers. It's the same kind of cell, by the way, right? They are both squamous. It's just like, how many layers are we talking about here? Okay, simple, one layer. Stratify, multiple layers. Okay, next we have this cuboidal. Okay, cuboidal is specializes in secretion and absorption. So either you are like creating some kind of fluid secretion, or you are gonna be absorbing certain material. And this happens in multiple places in the body, okay? Can you think of, like, I mean, they are on the screen, obviously, but then, like, can you think of another place in the body where you are secreting some kind of fluid? Like, not all the time, but then, like, you know, when it's necessary, like any body parts that you can think of that secrete stuff. Yes, sweat gland, right? Okay, so like the duct, the sweat duct that connects the sweat gland to the surface of your body, that's gonna be cuboidal. Okay, so any kind of ducts that connects to any kind of gland. We learn about pancreas, right? Pancreas secretes the insulin, but it also secretes some kind of fluid to go to your intestine to help neutralize the acidity, right? So that kind of duct is going to have the cuboidal. Okay, so many other ducts in the reproductive system, both male and female, tons of ducts there. And then the kidney, right? We'll learn next semester towards the end. The kidney has millions of these tubes that are inside that helps you filter the urine. And those cells that makes up those tubes are cuboidal epithelium. Okay, it's just simple. Cuboidal. Okay, there's no, the only thing that can be stratified are are the squamous. Okay, we don't have multiple layers of cuboidals or anything like that. All right. Next one, we have the simple columnar. Right? These are also used for secretion and absorption, but because they're bigger, they also offer some kind of protection. Okay, and so most of the time it's just fluid that's passing through those ducts that we talked about. But in these cases, when we look at the GI tract, that's like your intestinal tract, you have food passing by as well. So it's not as what's the term I'm looking for? It's like it's harder to pass through compared to liquid, right? So there is more resistance there, and that's why you need a bit of protection, right? And also the food that we eat, like I said, can have varying extremes, right? Acidity, right? The pH can change, the salt concentration can change. So we need cells that are able to offer quite a bit of protection as well. And so in the GI tract, we want to have simple columna. Okay, and that's what they look like. Okay? That's what they look like. They're rectangular cells, and every now and then they might pair up with cells that are going to be secreting some kind of mucus to help lubricate things. After all, you want the material to be able to pass through quite easily without getting stuck anywhere. Right? So that's an actual picture of what it looks like in the body. And then you have the cartoon at the bottom. And then, I just want to reiterate the theme that there is some kind of basement membrane right at the bottom that allows all these cells to kind of insert themselves, attach themselves onto. Okay, now the next one is it's also a type of columnar. It's rectangular, but then there are two extra adjective here. Okay, so let's take a closer look at them. First is ciliated. So this is like a regular columnar. It's just rectangular shape. Ciliated means it has cilia on it. Okay, cilia. You learned about cilia earlier in the course with me when we talked about the different cell structure, right? Cilia helps move things along in the body, right? You can find cilia in the respiratory tract, right? It helps you sweep up all the, gucky stuff that you trap in the throat, and then you can spit them out. You also have cilia that is in the female reproductive tracts, right? In the part of the fallopian tube, right? That help guides the egg towards the uterus. Okay, so that's what ciliated means. Now the next one is a little bit complicated. It's pseudo stratify. We already know what stratify means, right? Just think about it in your mind. Recall the definition of stratify. Stratify means multiple layers, right? Does anybody know what pseudo means? You ever heard people say, using like a pseudonym? Pseudo, what is the meaning of pseudo?
I don't know, sir.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Pseudo means fake. Okay, pseudo means fake. If someone used like a pseudonym, it's like a fake name, right? This is fake, right? So what this means is like it appears to be stratified, it appears to be multiple layers, but then actually not really. Okay, so that's what the name means. So these are columnar cells, rectangular cells that have cilia on them, and they typically look like it is multiple layers, but when in fact it is just a single layer. Okay, so it's just the reason this happens is in columnar, in the previous one, you can see they pack nicely, one rectangle next to the other, right? But this one, it's not packed as nicely. You can, some are kind of squished at the bottom, some are kind of cut off at the top. So it gives the appearance that it is multiple layers, but in fact, is just a single layer. Okay, that's basically what it is. All right. There are other kinds of epithelium. We talk about how they have cilia already, but in some cases they can also have microvilli. Okay, the difference between cilia and microvilli is that the cilia can move. They are like little brush that moves on their own. Okay, the microvilli, on the other hand, they don't really move at all. Okay, they are just an extension of the cytoplasm. All right, so this would be like a regular columnar cell. Okay, but the microvilli would means that it has these foldings on it. Okay, as a loose analogy, the cilia is like the hair on like a broomstick. Okay, these are more like when you wear the gloves, like the little fingers. Okay, in fact, microvilli means like finger-like projections. That's what they mean. Right. So their purpose is to increase surface area. And microvilli will increase surface area for absorption. Okay. So you will find them in the intestine, for example. You'll find them in the kidney. Whereas the cilia is not for surface area or anything like that. Okay, the cilia just help move things along. Okay. Now I am gonna ask you to try to identify these things. Okay, let's start easy. Okay, let's start easy. Like this one. Right, this one right here. Can you tell me what this is? Okay. First of all, let's determine the shape. Is that squamous? Is that cuboidal? Is that columnar? What are we looking at here, guys? Simple squamous is correct. Okay, if they look like sunny side up eggs, then they are simple squamous. Okay. All right, how about this one here? How about this one? You can do this, right? This one is fairly straightforward, I hope. Just think of the shape. Anybody? What shape is this? Like, just using regular shape description. What shape do you think this is? I hope you can see it's rectangle, right? If it's rectangle, then we say columnar. That's right. Simple columnar. Okay, how about these ones? How about these ones? These little squares, huh? This is in your body. This is for real, okay? These are not some made up stuff. All right, hopefully you know this one as well. Simple cuboidal. Cuboidal. I think that's how you spelled it. And then, no, it's a D-I-A-L, I think. Cuboidal. There we go. And this is actually a duck, right? Like this would be the edge of the duck. And then, the fluid in the duck would be traveling within. Okay.
Sorry, in the slideshow, it's spelled how I put it in the chat.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
It's
it's a weird
probably,
spelling, eh?
yeah, it's probably a spelling mistake earlier. Let me see. Oh yeah, no, you're right. Thank you. Sorry, English is not my strong suit. Boy, D-A-L, thank you. Very good for catching that. What about this one?
Is that one the pseudo one because it looks more squished?
Yeah, this one is pseudo because if you look at the simple columnar here, you can clearly just see one row of nuclei, right? Okay, like here, right? But here it looks like there are multiple layers of the nucleus here and there. Okay, it gives the appearance of stratify. And then we have all these hair up here. So this is the pseudo stratify. Pseudo stratify ciliated columnar. Okay. And over here, that is a multiple layer of flat cells. So that is the stratify squamous. So there you have it. Are we okay? Now, so what I would recommend us doing is what is this? This is lecture 10, right? Okay, so like if you take out your study guide, if you have your study guide, full screen. Oh no, this is the wrong one. This is the right one. We have a chart here. We have a table here. Okay, so let's just write it down together. One time, okay, to put it all together, right? Because when I go through the slides and I tell you, a lot of times like you cannot retain it as well, right? So but then writing it down hopefully will help. So again, help me out. What is this first one? What is what kind of epithelial tissue are we talking about for this one?
Is that one the simple squamous?
That is a simple squamous. That's right. Simple squamous. And again, if it's really thin, doesn't really offer much protection, right? But if it's thin, it's good for diffusion. Okay, it's good for allowing things to pass through, right? So we don't have to use word for word what is said on the slide, just like the key idea of what it does, right? And where are we gonna find them? In the lungs, right? In the air sacs in lungs for gas exchange, as well as blood vessels. Okay. And again, the logic you have to tell yourself is, in the air sacs, we need to do a gas exchange. So of course, like you don't want the oxygen to have to cross like 5-6 layers of these cells, right? It would take too long. We would suffocate. Same thing with the blood vessel. We have to take the nutrients, the different parts of the body. You don't want the glucose to again have to cross 5-6 layers before getting to the cells, right? You want it to be happening quickly. All right, next one here. Okay, this is simple. I hope you can see it simple. And let's spell it right this time. Cuboidal. Boy. Do. Okay. And the function is secretion and absorption. When you think secretion, you think about like fluid coming out of certain organs, right? Think about sweat glands. These are in the ducts. Ducts. Ducts of glands. You can have different glands. Sweat glands. right? You can have like your adrenal gland. You might have heard of that. That pumps out adrenaline. You might have like mammillary gland. Okay. And I told you, you have tubes in kidney. Right? So these tubes, these ducts, they are made of simple cuboidal. Okay. So, you know, like you would have your gland here, and then it would have a duct. I don't know if this picture is going to help, but this is a gland, this is duct. Okay, if you zoom in into the duct, you zoom in here, what do you see? Well, this is the duct. Okay, and then the cell that surrounds it is going to be your cuboidal. These are the nuclei. Okay, so it's like building an igloo almost. Okay, so on and so forth, right? And this would be like the inside of the duct, right? Simple cuboidal. Okay, what about the next one? Help me out.
The simple columnar.
Yeah, this is the simple columnar, which is also for secretion and absorption. Okay, and then it has some extra function plus protection. Okay, this is like your basic phone plan. It only comes with two perks. Okay, but if you pay a little bit extra, you get extra protection. It's like, you know, you want warranty with your phone or something, right? Plus protection. That would be the simple columnar. And it would be in the GI tract, gastrointestinal tract. Okay, you would find some of it in the reproductive tract as well. Actually, no reproductive tract. It's just like the GI tract. Is this the same version that I post on the on eCentennial? Do you guys have this in front of you? I
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah, okay. It's the same one, right? Okay, because
Same.
okay, great. I updated it and then I just forgot if I have changed it on eCentennial. Anywho, how about this one? This one you can see is multiple layers. So it's no longer simple, it's stratified. Stratified squamous. Okay. And it comes in two flavors. Non-keratinized for inside the body and keratinized for like exposed surface, right? Like skin and stuff like that. And the function is mostly for protection. Okay. Protection against wear and tear, protection against dehydration. Okay. So skin, oral cavity, right? And if you want, you can put esophagus. You might have extra thick stratified squamous at the bottom of your feet. Last but not least, these are ciliated columna. They're not pseudo-stratified because I can see like very clearly just one row, right? It's only pseudo-stratified if it appears to be multiple layers. So this is in airway. right? Like your trachea, right? And sometimes in reproductive tracts. And their function is to, in the airway, is to remove mucus. Okay, in the reproductive tract is like guide egg movement. All right. That's pretty much it. So I mean, it's the same information that I was presenting to you on the slide, but hopefully writing it down helps a little bit. You're almost there. Just one more test away from being done. Okay, let's go back to our slides. Which of the following best describe multiple layers of flat cells? Okay. After hearing it twice, I am optimistic that you're gonna get this right, right? So what's the answer? You just type it in the chat if you have it. I'm not gonna do the poll because you guys stopped doing the poll halfway. I don't know what happened. I lose half the class after after test one. I don't know where everybody went. Multiple layers of flat cells. That's right, it's stratify. Okay, stratify squamous. Okay, stratify is multiple layers, squamous, they are flat. Found it in the mouth, inside the mouth, right? Skin, esophagus. Okay, what about tissue best for diffusion? Best for diffusion. Yep, simple squamous. So the test is, for this lecture, the test is just going to be simple things like this, okay? Like, say obvious things. I'm not going to ask you like obscure stuff, okay, that are really like strange and hard to find in the notes. It's just like if you're here right now and you're listening to me and you're processing the information, that should get you through. Healthy trachea, so this is like an application question, right? Okay, healthy trachea is the airway, all right? I was watching a documentary on Netflix over the weekend that talks about this he was called like the super surgeon, okay? Because he would perform this supposedly revolutionary surgery on people, where he has this plastic trachea and then he covered it with stem cells, and then he would transplant it into patients who needs a new trachea, right? So it was like revolutionary. And then it turns out like all of his patients died, and it turns out he was faking all of it. Like he did the surgery, but then the surgery was not like tested on animals or anything like that. He was just like testing it on his patient, and it was crazy stuff. If you have Netflix, go ahead and check it out. It's called The Bad Surgeon. 3 episodes, very interesting thing. Anyway, back to here. Healthy trachea is lined with a ciliated columnar epithelium. We know that already, right? They are rectangular cells that have cilia on them. In heavy smoker, the ciliated columnar will likely be replaced by, okay, so the smoke will kill off all the cilia. And now what are we gonna replace it by? Okay, what do you think? Okay, so we have some people say E. Okay, like all the smoke, all the chemicals in the smoke, right, is actually going to irritate the trachea, and the body is trying to protect itself from all these smoke chemicals, right? And so anytime you damage the surface repeatedly, your body is going to want to create extra protection, extra layers. So that would actually be a stratified squamous. That's the correct answer. Okay, to protect itself from the chemicals, like I said. All right? And that's why heavy smokers, they tend to have this smoker's cough, right? Because they don't have the cilia anymore. They can't remove the mucus. The only way to do it is just to like cough it out. All right. Next, we're gonna do connective tissue. Right. So we did epithelial tissue. Next is connective tissue. There are only 4 main type of tissues in the body: epithelial, connective, and then 2 more to go afterwards. Now, within connective tissue, we have a bunch of, subtype as well. So what do they do in general? Okay. Well, connective tissue, as the name implies, they are going to connect various things together. Okay. Do you know there's no empty space in your body? Right? It's not like, it's not like you have your kidneys and then in between is like empty space. It's kind of scary if that happens, because if they're empty space, it means like if I'm like moving around, then it's like the kidney is like bouncing inside your abdominal cavities, right? That doesn't happen, right? Everything is actually tightly packed together. It's filled up with all these connective tissues. They also produce blood cells as well as store fat. So that's what they are. Now, when it comes to understanding connective tissue, they usually have 2 components to it. Okay, they have the cellular component, the part that's alive, and then they would have a matrix in which the cells are found in. Okay, so the matrix is the environment that the cells are found in, and it's composed of what we call like ground substances. These can be fibers, it can be semi-fluid in some cases, and it could be completely fluid in the case of blood as well. So as we go through the different types of connective tissues, I want you to pay attention to the cell type as well as the matrix that the cells are embedded in. So first, we have 2 categories of connective tissue. Okay, we have soft connective tissue, which is separated into loose or dense, and then we have specialized connective tissue, and they are all listed here. So let's start with the soft connective tissue. Okay. Loose connective tissue, as the name suggests, it's not very compact, it's very loose. Think like let me try to find a picture of it's like okay, I found it. Let me just copy this thing over and show you. Sometimes when you buy electronics, I guess, and then it comes with like in the box, it has all these like styrofoam stuff, right? Do you know what I mean? Like these are like fillers, right? So that your package is not going to be like bouncing all over inside the box, right? It's like it helps you absorb. Yeah, is that what they call it? Packing peanuts? I actually don't know what they're called. I just searched like packing styrofoam, and this picture shows up. Yeah, so that's what the loose connective tissues are. They are not like super compact. Okay, there's some space in between them. There's some wiggle room, and essentially that's what the loose connective tissue does. Okay, it helps to fill up the space between organs. It helps bind them together, and you have this kind of spider web looking appearance to it. Okay, so you can see these are the cells. Right? These are the cells. You can see the nucleus of the cell right here. This is another cell. The cells are not very tightly packed. They are just scattered. Okay, think of it as like a raisin cookie. Okay, the raisins are like the cells. They're kind of scattered all over the place. And then the matrix are these fibers. Okay, these fibers can be collagen fibers that gives it a little bit of elasticity. And this is not very good for support or protection or anything like that. Okay, think of these loose connective tissue as just, you know, the packing styrofoam, the fillers. The dense connective tissue is much tighter. You can see in the picture, there's almost like no gap in between them. These are more like bubble wraps. It tightly goes around your package, okay? Doesn't leave much wiggle room in between. And it comes in two flavors. We have the dense irregular, which is just kind of like all over the place. Over here, they don't have any kind of particular direction associated with it. And then there is the dense regular. Okay, so dense regulars, you can see they are parallel to each other. They have the same direction, and that is able to give them some strength. And that would be suitable in places like ligaments and tendons. Okay, so tendon is what connects muscle to bones. Oops, over here. Tendon is what connects muscle to bones, while the ligaments is what connects bones to bones. Okay, so these are made up of dense irregular as well as dense regular connective tissue. Moving on, we have cartilage. So cartilage is the specialized one, right? And cartilage gives flexibility to certain structure. In some cases, cartilage prevents wear and tear. Okay, and it also provides support. So there are three different types of cartilage depending on where you find them. Your ear is made up of cartilage. What else in your face is made up of cartilage besides the ears? The nose, that's right. Okay, so like that is to give it flexibility. You can fold your ear and let go, it springs back to normal shape. That is flexibility. Okay, you have another type called fibrous cartilage. That is preventing wear and tear, and you will find them at the backbone. Okay, so your backbone is made up of a bunch of smaller bones that stacks on top of each other. And you know, whenever you bend forward and backwards, those bones would be rubbing against each other. And to minimize friction, we want to have some cartilage in between. Okay, so in this picture, it shows you that there is a disc between your backbone. You might have heard of people who are older. They might experience what's called like a slipped disc. Okay, that's when the disc in the backbone kind of slip out, or they become so thin that now the bones are like rubbing on each other. And actually, there is a nerve that comes out on the side of your backbone, as you will learn next semester. And when this is gone, that you'll be compressing on the nerve, and that's called like a pinched nerve. You might also have heard of that. People with a pinched nerve, they have these tingly sensations in the legs or in the arms, and then they actually have to do physio to pull on their neck. Right? They lie down on a bed, and then they have this head harness that's connected to heavy weights that help pull the spine and alleviate the pain. Okay, and then we have these hyaline cartilage, which helps supports the trachea. If you take your hand and then you gently rub your trachea up and down here, you can feel individual ridges. Okay, these are your cartilage that are surrounding your trachea. It keeps them open. Keeps your airway open, which is of course super important. Otherwise, you can't breathe, right? Okay, next we have the adipose tissue. Adipose tissue is fat tissue, and the fat tissue is important for storing fats. Essentially, it helps you do long-term storage, and you have adipose tissue throughout the body in various locations. Here is showing the breast, but you can have fat tissue surrounding your key organs, your liver, your kidneys, all those places are, have some adipose tissue there to help cushion them, to help insulate them, keeping them warm. All right. That is that. Next one. This is what bone looks like. If you cut it really thin, slice of it and look at it under microscope, they look like tree rings, actually, don't they? And bone is what are bones for, right? The obvious answers is that bone provides support. Okay, without bones, we just slouch over, right? Bones work with muscle to allow movements. But bone is also important for creating blood cells, okay, in the bone marrow. And bone helps you store minerals like calcium, phosphate. So that's bone. And finally, the last one is blood. Right? Blood, we're going to spend a whole week learning about blood next semester. But very briefly, the blood consists of the liquid portion called plasma, and then there are different cell types in blood. Red cells for transporting oxygen, white cells for defense, and then we also have platelets that helps you stop the bleeding when you have a cut. Okay, so the plasma is mostly water, but it has all these dissolved minerals in it. Okay, so again, not to get bogged down by the details, just have a general idea of what it is. So connective tissue, right? We have the specialized one, as well as the just the loose and the dense connective tissue, right? And then the specialized one includes cartilage, adipose tissue, the blood here, and bones. So they are all shown here. So let's try to identify some of these things. Okay. So this one that looks like a bunch of circles with a lot of empty space there. Okay. That's the adipose tissue. Right. These are all fats inside the cells. We're storing them for energy. Okay, the one that looks like tree rings, what is that? That is the bone, yeah. So I think there are some questions on the final test where I show you pictures and I ask you to label them, okay, to identify them. This one is blood. The red circles are the red blood cells, and the purple ones are actually white blood cells. White blood cells are actually not purple. They are only purple because we stain them, we color them. Okay. Over here we have the dense, regular connective tissue. For tendon and ligaments. Tendon is muscle to bone. Ligament is bone to bones. These one that looks like tiny crystals, that's the cartilage. And there are 3 different types of cartilage, right? In the ear and the nose for flexibility, between the spine for reducing friction, and in the trachea for support. And finally, this one is loose connective. Okay, loose connective. Okay. These are called soft connective tissue. And then the other ones, these ones, right? These are specialized. connective. Okay. All right. Last two type of tissue is muscle tissue and then nervous tissue. Muscle tissues are used for movement, of course, and they produce movement by contracting, by shortening. Vertebrates, which are us, things that have a backbone, have three types of muscle: skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscles. And they're all summarized here. Basically, we look at them, we categorize them based on appearance and then based on control. Right? So if they have these bands, if you look at it under the microscope, this is an actual picture, all right? And you see these bands, then we say that they are striated. Striated means it has stripy appearance. So both skeletal muscle and cardiac muscle are striated. Smooth muscle, as the name implies, they are smooth, so they are non-striated. Okay, non-striated. Anything that you can move voluntarily is going to be skeletal muscle. Okay, so like, you know, your bicep, tricep, muscle that moves your finger, muscle that moves your tongue, your facial expression, anything that you can control voluntarily, that's a skeletal muscle. Anything that you cannot control, other than the heart, okay, is going to be smooth muscle. So like the food is moving through your intestinal tract, you don't control that. Like the intestine move on its own, right? That's smooth muscle. And the cardiac muscle is only found inside the heart. Okay, nowhere else. And of course, that's involuntary as well. Okay, for good reason. You don't want to have to voluntarily control your heart rate, right? Like, what if you forgot? What if you fall asleep and you forgot to tell your heart to beat, right? That's not a good thing, right? So that's why it's involuntary. Neurons, this just shows you what a typical neuron looks like. Again, we're gonna spend like 2-3 weeks talking about the nervous system next semester, right? So we don't really have to learn too much about it. Okay, this is just showing you neurons connect with each other, they communicate with each other, and you know, allows us to respond to the environment. One of the characteristics of living things, right? So just one last question here. The type of muscle responsible for involuntary contraction of the stomach is, okay, so if you don't control it and it's not in the heart, it's going to be smooth. That's pretty much it. All right. So let's just go back to here. I'm going to summarize all this for you in a new note, perhaps. How do I do this? Add a page. Okay. So we just put everything together, and hopefully it makes it, like, if you keep this next to you on the test, it would help you, you know, easily classify things. Okay, so this is tissue. Right, so tissue. So we have epithelial tissue. Okay. Epithelial tissue can be, I haven't really think about how to do this, but I guess this is fine. Simple or stratified, right? Simple is one layer, as you know by now. You must be sick of hearing me saying that. And stratify is multiple layers. Simple comes in 3 flavors. We have squamous, cuboidal, columnar. But there is only one type of stratify, squamous. Okay. Columnar has other subgroup, right? It can be ciliated, right? It could contain microvilli. Villus is singular, villi is multiple. It could also be pseudo stratified. Okay, and what I want you to do when you're studying is to add to this note. Use a different color and then just like put some examples here. Okay, simple squamous, you're like, okay, air sacs in the lung, right? And then, you know, for cuboidal, ducts of the glands. Just like one simple example to help you remember it. That's all the epithelial tissue. Okay. What's the second category that we're gonna do here? What's after epithelial tissue? After epithelial tissue, the second kind of tissue is connective, right? Connective tissue. And connective tissue has 2 kinds. Soft and specialized. So for soft, we have 2 types. Sorry, I haven't really thought this through. For soft, we have loose connective. Which is the packing stuff, right? The packing styrofoam. They're just fillers, right? They help absorb shock found between organs. And then we have the dense connective. Dense connective has 2 types. Irregular and regular. So regular has much more strength to it. It's good for tendon and ligament. Here, I'll put an example here for you, right? Tendon, ligament. Right? For irregular, it's just like padding. It's under the skin. Right? So like I said, you should fill this in between organs using a different color. We did these in the chart already, right? So you can fill it in later on your own. But that's what I want you to do, okay? To give some examples to help you remember it, or to, you know, have a quick reference sheet on the test. Okay, specialized. We have various type of specialized. I'm just gonna do it like this. I hope this makes sense to you. Okay, so adipose, that's just fat for storage of energy, for protection, for cushioning, for insulation. Can I have another one? I just want to check to see if you guys are with me, or am I just talking to myself here? Give me another example of specialized connective tissue.
Cardiac.
That would be muscle. That's another category. Yeah, but
Is
good
Is that
try.
cartilage maybe?
Yes, cartilage. Now, if you remember cartilage, you have to remember the other one, right? Because cartilage is closely connected to, yeah, Roy said it already, bone, right? Okay, cartilage and bones, they are like, essentially, I wouldn't say the same, but then like they're like related together, right? And then there is also blood. Okay, and cartilage, we have, different subtype as well. We have the elastic one in the nose and the ear. We have the fibrous one between the backbones. And then we have the hyaline, which is for, support, opening up your airway. So there you go. For connective tissue, we have 6 kinds. 6 kinds. I remember the bones are the one that looks like the rings, right? Cartilage, they look like little crystals, crystal beads. All right, another tissue. What is it? What's another tissue? We have 2 more types. And then we're done.
Muscle.
Muscle, that's right. Thank you. Muscle. Okay. Muscle, we have 3 types. Skeletal. Smooth. And cardiac. Okay, so this is striated and voluntary. This is non-striated and involuntary. Cardiac is striated and also involuntary. Examples of skeletal muscle, anything that you can move at all. So if you know the name of any muscle, you can use that. Right? You know biceps, right? Bicep, triceps, quadricep, hamstring. Okay. Any other muscle that anybody knows? You can just put
Sternocleidomastoid.
That's right, sternocleidomastoid, the one that goes from your back of the ear to your sternum. Okay, allows you to turn your head like this. Okay. Of all the muscles, you remember the one that has the longest name. Good for you. Okay. If you go to the gym, right, deltoid, right? Trapezius, anything. Smooth muscle. Right? So that would be like GI tract. Okay, helps move the food along. Cardiac is only in the heart. And the last type of tissue, nervous. Nervous tissue. Okay. There are subtypes, but then we didn't talk about it. You'll learn it next semester. But this is basically it. This table, this chart. Okay. You added a little bit more detail, then you have yourself a nice summary sheet. That will be adequate for the final test. Okay. And that's it. You survived the course. Well, I mean, you still have to write a final test, but so far things are looking not too bad in terms of, you know, grades and all that. So that's it. I know there's we're done. You can go, but before you go, just want to remind you, no class on Tuesday. You just do asynchronous stuff. I'll post a review video for you to watch, and I will post a link for the review sheet as well. Of course, you're welcome to find me if you need to ask questions, or just email me. Final test is gonna be in 1 week on the 14th. It's gonna be available from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., 11:59 p.m. like usual, and then that's it. Okay, so I just want to say thank you for, you know, specifically the 10, 11 of you who always comes every week. You guys are very dedicated, committed to the class, so I appreciate that, and I hope to see you again next semester in my second in the anatomy physiology course. Okay, all the best for all your final tests, and take care. Is it possible for me to repeat what you said at the start of class?